Long ago, in a land where golden fields stretched to the horizon and crystal rivers shimmered under the sun, there stood a kingdom called Valerion. From afar, it looked like a paradise, with tall towers, bustling markets, and music filling the air. But beneath its beauty lived a painful truth: power belonged to the wealthy, and the poor lived in silence. At the very edge of the kingdom, where the grand roads turned into dusty paths, stood a small broken cottage. Inside lived a young girl named Elira. Few people knew her true story. She was born a princess. Her father had been the rightful king, wise, kind, and loved by all. But when Elira was only a baby, greedy nobles betrayed him. The throne was stolen, and her family was forced to flee. Soon after, her parents died, leaving her alone with nothing but a silver pendant, the last proof of her royal blood. The villagers called her the poor princess, but they said it with laughter, not respect. Elira grew up working in the fields, carrying water, and sewing clothes for others. Her dresses were simple, her shoes worn, but her eyes held a quiet strength that no one understood. Every night, she would climb a small hill and look at the distant palace shining under the moonlight. One day, she whispered, "I don't want power. I just want justice." A heart that refused to harden. Despite her hardships, Elira never let bitterness fill her heart. She helped the elderly carry wood, shared her bread with hungry children, and always spoke kindly. One cold winter night, a terrible storm struck the village. Wind roared like a wild beast, and rain flooded the streets. While everyone stayed inside, Elira heard a faint cry near the forest. Without hesitation, she ran into the storm. Under a fallen tree, she found an old woman trapped and shivering. Elira struggled for hours in the freezing rain to free her and carried her home. She lit a fire and gave her the last food she had. The old woman looked at her with eyes full of mystery. "You have the heart of a queen," she said softly. Elira smiled gently. "I'm just a poor girl." The woman shook her head. "True power lives in kindness." Before leaving, she gave Elira a crystal ring that glowed faintly. "When the time comes, remember who you are." A kingdom losing hope. As years passed, the kingdom fell deeper into suffering. The new king was cruel and greedy. Taxes became unbearable, soldiers harsh, and people lived in fear. Elira watched mothers struggle to feed their children and farmers lose their land. Each injustice felt like a wound to her heart. One day in the market, she saw soldiers beating an old farmer who couldn't pay taxes. Before she could think, she stepped forward. "Stop," she cried. The crowd gasped. No one had dared speak against the soldiers before. They laughed at her simple clothes. "Go home, girl." But she stood her ground, her voice steady. "You are hurting your own people." Though they pushed her aside, something changed. For the first time, people saw courage instead of weakness. The secret awakens. That night, her pendant and ring began to glow, filling the room with soft golden light. A hidden royal crest appeared on the pendant. Memories of her childhood stories rushed back. She realized the truth she had always felt deep inside. She was the rightful heir to the throne. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from fear, but from responsibility. "If I am truly a princess," she whispered, "then my people are my duty." The spark of rebellion. Elira began secretly helping villagers unite. She listened to their struggles, helped them share resources, and reminded them they were stronger together. Her kindness turned into leadership. Hope slowly returned. People began calling her the light. But hope is dangerous to tyrants. The king heard rumors of a girl inspiring unity and ordered his soldiers to capture her. One night, soldiers surrounded her cottage with torches. Elira stepped outside calmly. Behind her stood villagers, old, young, poor, all united for the first time. The soldiers hesitated. They had expected a weak girl, not a leader with the strength of a village behind her. The journey to claim destiny. Realizing she could no longer hide, Elira left the village to gather allies across the kingdom. She traveled through forests, mountains, and towns, listening to people's pain and inspiring courage. Farmers, blacksmiths, scholars, and even some soldiers joined her cause. She trained, learned strategy, and discovered strength she never knew she had. But the journey was not easy. She faced betrayal, hunger, and moments of doubt. One night, she looked at the stars and whispered, "Father, guide me." And deep inside, she felt courage rise again. The great battle. Finally, the day came. Elira and her people stood before the palace gates. The king's army was large and powerful, but Elira's army had something stronger: hope. The battle was fierce. Steel clashed, arrows flew, and the sky filled with smoke. Elira fought bravely, not with anger, but with determination. When she finally faced the king, he laughed. "You? A poor girl?" She lifted her sword calmly. "A queen serves her people. You ruled them." With courage and skill, she defeated him. The gates opened. The kingdom was free. The crown of responsibility. Elira was crowned queen in a ceremony filled with tears and joy. But she wore the crown not with pride, but with humility. She rebuilt the kingdom with fairness and kindness. Taxes became just, laws compassionate, and every citizen had a voice. Schools were built, food shared, and hope returned stronger than ever. People no longer called her the poor princess. They called her the most powerful queen. Not because of her army or wealth, but because of her heart. A legacy of light. Years later, Queen Elira walked through the marketplace, smiling at children playing freely. A little girl asked, "Your Majesty, what makes a queen powerful?" Elira knelt beside her and said softly, "Kindness, courage, and never forgetting where you came from." And the kingdom flourished for generations, guided by the light of a queen who had once been underestimated by everyone, but believed in herself. Sparkle's moral of the story. True power doesn't come from wealth, crowns, or armies. It comes from kindness, courage, and the strength to stand for what is right, even when the world doubts you.